Hey everybody, welcome again to Each Other News. We've got Pat Larkin. He's the president of Ekco, and we know it's an MSP and an MSSP, both of those things. And we'll talk a little bit security, what's happening, what's not happening, and a little bit of their journey. Pat, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Julian, and thanks for the invitation to talk to you and to eChannel News.
Looking forward to it. So, give us a bit of a background. How did Echo start, and what do you guys do?
Sure. So Echo is, as a brand, is relatively new. It really is a conglomeration of a number of mergers and acquisitions. So it originally came from, I suppose, primarily very much focused on backup as a service. Grew into being an MSP and a cloud service provider. And then recognized, obviously, that in order to be successful in that space, it needs a significant security capability. So acquired a number of security businesses in Ireland, UK, and Netherlands, and now leads very much as a security first cloud provider. It's a combination of about 27, 28 businesses that have been acquired since about 2017, 2018. So growing to quite a significant staffing, about 1,200 staff, resources Ireland, UK, Netherlands, and servicing customers also in the Caribbean. So it's evolved. I suppose it's that classic evolution to say, well, look, we're providing IT services, then cloud services, and then recognizing, well, look, to do this competently and capably, we need to bolt on security. And then obviously recognizing then security is really key to the digital transformation that's happening. It's very much now a security first business.
Amazing. So, Pat, it's even difficult just to merge two or three companies together. How was the experience like to merge that many companies together?
It's been very interesting. I mean, if you can capture the essence of the individual businesses and try and keep that essence. So the essence, typically, a lot of the founders are still involved in Echo. A lot of the original founders, so I was a founder of one of the acquired businesses, and my partner is also involved in business. So they've managed, I think, with a philosophy of keeping the founders involved, and trying to keep the essence of the individual businesses, and then build into a kind of a common platform, if you like, both in terms of back office, but also in terms of service delivery, and then go to market. And I suppose the advantage of that obviously is that the whole IT space and the cybersecurity space is very evolutionary. Even if you were a static business, even if we existed as the business that I founded formerly, it's a very dynamic, static business. So the opportunity for us has been, because you've brought so many diverse businesses together across multiple geolocations, with multiple skill sets. You're trying to keep the best of the people and the best of the services, and the best of the customers of each of those businesses, and then try and rationalize that into a very coherent customer service proposition and a very coherent go-to-market and service delivery platform. So it's a work in progress. I won't lie, but I think the philosophy of the original acquirers and founders is to try and keep the essence of the original businesses and then merge it into something really powerful.
Congratulations, because it's not that easy to do, my friend. And
No.
are you looking to acquire more, or are you going to settle for a while?
Yeah, no, we're looking to continue to acquire, so acquiring geographically, acquiring, complementary to what our space is, and then just reflecting obviously the evolution in cybersecurity. We're looking to move into areas like OT,
Hmm.
AI, etc. as well. So looking to acquire capability, looking to acquire geo presence, and then looking to acquire customer base. That's kind of the strategy, I suppose, of Echo overall.
The journey continues. So,
Yeah,
Pat,
absolutely.
let's talk about the cybersecurity. I mean, obviously, if I think you realize this as well, if you're not a cybersecurity first MSP or MSSP, then you're pretty much not in the game anymore, right? Um,
Correct.
what do you think is a challenge today? I mean, AI obviously is the big disruptor, because of what the bad actors are being able to leverage a more sophisticated level of AI today. What do you think is a zooming out to the problem? What do you think is a problem right now with security and the way the mindset is for end customers?
I think there's always the latest disruptors. You're 100% right. AI is a significant enabler and disruptor, for cybersecurity and for businesses overall. But if you look, I guess, at the problem domain ref, remains steadfastly and very um, uh, difficult problem to solve, which is that, to be secure, to be resilient, requires excellent cybersecurity, information security, cybersecurity, risk management, cyber hygiene, et cetera, et cetera. And even though there are very significant disruptors and changes in play, the core problem remains the same, which is really excellent approach to cybersecurity, risk-based approach, risk management, and you'll see consistently where the majority of breaches occur, attacks occur, etc. It is usually, it is usually fundamental cybersecurity issues, social engineering, vulnerability management, etc., etc. They are being enabled obviously by new technologies and new paradigms such as AI, and that increases the space. But your problem has been that 15 years ago this was a relatively small problem. Given digital transformation, given that practically every business from your mom and pop hairdresser to your large retailer to your large utility telco, et cetera, are now very significantly digitally dependent in terms of their core business and how they reach all their channels and reach all their customers. Suddenly the attack surface and the opportunity for, I guess, the bad actors, whether they're geopolitical or whether they're cyber criminals, is absolutely massive, absolutely phenomenal. And even, the inadvertent events, the well-intentioned internal employee, the accident, if you like, it also has potential for huge disruption, as we've seen in very well illustrated over the last 3, 4 years as well. So I think it's the rapidly increasing digital transformation, digital adoption, the fact that the cyber crime economy is now the third largest economy in the world, right? So it's 10, 11 trillion. It's larger than illicit narcotics. So if you consider all the resources that have gone in over the last 100 years to try and counter and stem illicit narcotics, and you're suddenly saying this other economy has emerged for cyber criminals that is larger than that. It is much more virtual and digital than the physical makeup of something like illicit narcotics. Then obviously the opportunity is huge. The return is very, very significant, and it is a very significant impact to the digitally dependent businesses that and organizations that are out there.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder, since it's the third largest economy in the world, how many citizens, bad actor citizens, are in that country? It's probably the richest country per capita per head. I would
Like
imagine.
yeah, you see, I mean, apart from obviously, what individual cyber criminals can make, you obviously see nation states, uh, nation states like North Korea. It is a very significant source of revenue for them in terms of cryptojacking.
Yeah.
So you can see that actual, nation states. Through illicit purposes, getting significant return in their own right, apart from achieving political objectives in terms of disrupting of enemies and adversaries. But there is actually financial return for nation states as well as for the individual cyber criminals.
But could you ever believe that, one day, like, normally countries trade stuff, I've got oil, you've got, this, you've got that. But I like North Korea, I have nothing, but I can still grow my economy
Yeah.
by stealing money from everybody else.
Yes.
And I guess we allow it. I don't know. I'm not into that game, but wow. The times have changed, to say the least.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I suppose the modern economies have, moved with digital transformation and become digital economies, crime has just become digitized.
Yeah.
Um,
What a world we're living in.
yeah.
So talk a bit about Workday, and we're seeing I mean, the threat landscape is changing all the time, and it seems to me that we're always like one step behind. The bad actors do the certain things, and we all, oh my goodness, there we go, we shift over there, and then the bad actors shift over here. Oh my goodness, we go over here. What's your thoughts and things like the Workday challenges that we faced?
Yeah, I think it's back to my original point. I think if you look as reported as to what Workday released and then what the rest of the media released in terms of how the attack occurred, it on face value seems relatively simple. Cybersecurity is really about three things. It's about people, process, and technology. A lot of people get it wrong in the sense that they focus on technology first. And as a service provider in the industry, we're always out there banging drum to say, here's the latest technology that will secure this or solve that problem for you, et cetera, et cetera. But this points back to the fundamental of really simple cyber hygiene, which is it would appear that the breach occurred through social engineering, through what's called a phishing attack. where it then requested either a service provider or an internal employee within the organization to enable something, and then by virtue of that enablement, then it would appear that a significant amount of customer data was exfiltrated from the organization. So it's back to social engineering has been happening since day one of the IT industry and of the cybersecurity industry. So this is a fundamental problem, but it also points to, I suppose, the nature of the attacker here, in that it, as reported, it seems to be a kind of a conglomeration of attacker groups who specialize, and they're specializing in terms of things like the platform from which this data seems to have been extracted, i.e. Salesforce, and no obvious vulnerability in Salesforce, right? This wasn't an issue per se with the Salesforce service or the Salesforce platform. A skill set around hucksterism in terms of being credible in ringing up a help desk or an IT support organization, and then asking that creating a compelling and credible narrative, obviously, in the process, and then asking that an individual or a team of individuals to do something, i.e., to enable access to grant access to apparently what appeared to be a Salesforce associated tool or application, and then that the immediacy then of saying if they got access from that point, then exfiltration of data, and then you presume the standard game plays from there, which is they've got the data, which is valuable to the organization in its own right and to the data markets that exist in the cybercrime economy, because data, the credibility of something like social engineering and vishing
Mm.
is always the credibility of the narrative that you create, and the credibility of that narrative that you create is based typically off reconnaissance. Knowing key individuals that you're targeting, knowing the relationships, having credible data that allows you to to establish a credible narrative with those individuals or about those individuals, exfiltrating the data, and then in this case, seemingly looking to extort from the organization then, because, threatening release of that data and looking to extort from organizations money to prevent that release. And
Okay.
then, a parallel play of presumably releasing or opting to release that data onto the data markets in the dark web to commoditize that. And then presumably having that data to build more credible attacks elsewhere, to replicate the success that those organizations have had. And you're seeing a specialization. So what you see with cybercrime groups, no more than you see with cybersecurity companies and cyber product companies, et cetera, is, you build a skill set and a niche expertise in an area, and you look to repeat the miracle. So you build on your successes, and rather than going out and trying to boil the ocean, you specialize and you focus. You have a tool set, you have intellectual property, you have know-how, and then you've really good execution, and that's how these guys are operating. So this particular conglomeration of two or three hacker groups seems to be based around combined capability, presumably similar secret sauce, in the sense that, culturally they seem quite akin in terms of, English speaking, young,
Mm.
and then there doesn't appear as of yet to be a geopolitical element to this. It appears to be purely a combination of obviously financial reward and some, bragging rights and that sort of stuff as well. And quite often these relationships are fleeting. They come together for a campaign, then usually they're disrupted. Maybe some arrests, maybe some takedowns, et cetera, and then usually they break up and loosely assemble under a different brand or in a different organization to repeat the miracles again.
I guess there's mergers and acquisitions, temporarily or otherwise, on
Yes,
that side of
absolutely.
the fence.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so we're hearing. So when we look at the AI tools and how the bad actors are using it these days, especially with automated AI agents and things like this, we're starting to see that they have these agents now proliferating, in that they're doing surveillance and recon in the same way that private detectives and military does recon
Yeah,
on a target, and they gather information over time, and build a case, and this goes on automatically until, I guess, it goes into the next agent, who then looks at it and go, oh, I think we're ready to pull the trigger in this one. What's your thoughts on how the entire automation of hacking is literally the next wave, if you will, or is this just the same thing?
It's I think it's just the yin and yang of the cyber defense offense game, right? The defense side, companies like ourselves have been using AI in our tooling for the last 6, 7 years. It has been very efficient for us. In terms of the analysts in our security operations centers, et cetera, their productivity and their accuracy and their elimination of false positives, et cetera, has dramatically improved in the face of increasing workloads. Just the amount of logs and the amount of events and incidents that they need to investigate, and then the method as to how they investigate them. So the defense side have had advantage because I suppose AI hasn't been democratized really except in the last 2 years, 3 years, right? So the defense side have had kind of more proprietary AI and machine learning technologies in our tool sets. Typically last 5 or 6 years, and
Yeah,
it has been definitely beneficial to the defense side, right? So obviously, what's happened in the last, 3, 4 years is now
everybody can
suddenly
get it.
it's democratized, right? And again, that democratization is available to the defense and the offense side. So on the offense side or on the attack side, yeah, suddenly it has lowered the bar in terms of the skill sets that attackers now need. So suddenly, coding, scripting, etc., can be produced quite quickly and quite adaptively. And even things like social engineering. So, the typical controls that organizations might employ to say, well, you're requesting, Julian, you're ringing me up requesting me to change a password or grant access to a Salesforce instance or something like that, right? Typical controls, rather than taking that at face value through a ticketing system or through an email system, we might have called back, or you might have been required to call in to kind of validate that request, if you like. So obviously, you can see, AI, video generation, AI voice generation, et cetera, and suddenly can easily replicate Julian or Pat. And I've been the butt of numerous demonstrations of AI. Deepfakes, in terms of demos of the AI capability. So some of those controls are now weakened, and you've seen examples where there's been large financial fraud perpetrated by organizations by using those technologies. Uh, that does require, even though the AI is democratized, it does require a lot of effort, right? So it's not like it's just entirely a click button. It does require effort. So it's back to the targeting, it's back to the investment that an attacker needs to make on deep reconnaissance. So, you're aware, and you're probably receiving on a daily basis, the Revolut calls that are just highly automated to your phone saying, this is Revolut, and looking for you to respond to that. And they lack credibility now. They're still catching a small percentage, say, of consumers, but they
Mhm.
lack credibility because they're not targeted. They're highly automated, and you can see them coming from 1,000 yards away, right? Um, but if somebody really wants to get Julian or Pat, they will do hours, days of reconnaissance
Mhm.
using AI tools, using social media, using a whole variety of stuff, using, identity for sale on the dark web. They will then construct a compelling narrative. The narrative has to be tailored. It has to be Julian, hey, Pat, I'm going to call you. I'm going to interview you about cybersecurity. It needs to be relevant to the problem I have,
Yeah.
or they need to break into our respective emails or something like that to gain credible context. And then they obviously need to execute what they're trying to execute. You know, Targeting us would be of limited value because they're going to get limited return from us, but targeting a large retailer or a large pharmaceutical company or a large healthcare company is suddenly of interest because potentially they know 33% of organizations still pay ransomware, right?
Mhm.
So they know if 1 in 3 is going to result in direct ransomware return, ideally. um, and then they still have the ability for sale of the identity data on the dark web, all of the other bits. Plus, then they can downstream the identity data to people that specialize in attacking individual consumers, highly automated, et cetera, as well. So AI definitely offers the attack side. It's more than leveled the playing pitch
Yeah.
right now in terms of attack versus defense. It is attacking some of the controls and mitigations that organizations have had on the process side, never mind the technology side. Um, and there is a collective, I suppose, deep intake of breath to say, well, look, how is the attack side going to innovate with this technology? I mean, the defense side is innovating all the time, right? We are innovating the whole time to try and deliver more effective protections for customers, and more effective incident response and all of that to customers. So the attack side is innovating. the defense side is equally innovating. We've had a head start, but now it's very much level playing field.
Yeah. Well, it just seems to me that it's it's this cat and mouse game, right?
Yeah.
And on their end, whether they win or not, get the money or not, they move on to the next victim, right? So
Yes.
they don't have they don't really care at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
they're attacking, and they only need to be right once, and there's always a percentage of humans who just don't get it, and maybe will never get it. And so we're trying to build technologies to kind of isolate or insulate um, those people from making mistakes. It's almost like, everybody needs to wear a seatbelt, but
Yeah.
now when you enter your car, the seatbelt just automatically comes down and locks in,
Sure.
so you don't forget to put it in. No, we're also seeing a lot of things like poisoning of AI happening. We're also seeing how companies are using AI a little bit recklessly without some guardrails, and that's again increasing the attack surface. Are you seeing on your side, the your customers using AI poorly, badly, that is actually increasing their risks, or you see them doing it well?
Yeah, no, I think if you look at even just the percentage of incidents and breaches, right? So ignore use of AI on the cyber attack or defense side, right? The incidence of breaches is definitely rising involving AI. And there's two dimensions to that. One is, where there are, properly identified and formally sanctioned initiatives within organizations to use AI. The AI hype curve, if you like, of 2 years ago meant that every organization, regardless of use case, was, oh, we got to look at AI. It's going to save us a lot of money. It's going to allow us to innovate, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of that then, particularly with poor use case definition, meant that, people went off sporadically doing stuff, right? And without the appropriate guardrails and controls. And even if you look, so apart from organizations' consumption and use of AI, if you look at the provision of AI services, you're looking and saying even the models and even the algorithms and even the tool sets that are provided have vulnerabilities and security insecurities in them, and then factor in organizations' use of that, and not understanding the difference between maybe public and private use of AI, and where the data is going, etc. So you're seeing a significant increase in, I suppose, breaches and security incidents involving customers using AI. And that's both sides, misunderstanding and misuse by the customers. And then in some cases, misconfiguration, misarchitecture by the service providers. Okay. That you're definitely seeing. You're also seeing then on the attack side, incidents or attacks involving AI are rising. Okay. Now they're not as prolific as people would make out, but they are definitely rising. So the stats would point to now, in some cases involving data breaches, up to and involve, somewhere between 10 and 15% of incidents may have an AI dimension to it, whether it's just the reconnaissance side, whether it's the deep fake, or whether it is then scripting or something,
Mm.
or just malware adaption, and change using kind of AI technology to do that.
Pat, I would suggest that you would probably recommend before a company clicks on that button called AI that they speak with a security company like yourselves first to kind
Yeah,
of just understand the pattern. Because look, these darn things are so available, right? Like
yeah,
there's thousands of AI apps available already.
yes,
Forget the LLMs and all the other stuff, right? And it just seems to me they're just adding more and more and more and more daily. Um, Developing of software has now become like, not, I don't want to say anybody, but many people can do it who don't have that skill set, and they're pulling in applications from who knows where,
yep,
open source that could be loaded with malware, and they're reselling that as as a developer, but they're really not.
yeah,
They're not a security first developer, and so it just seems like we've given the world tools to accelerate everything good and bad at the same time.
yes,
And if everybody just writes software now and no one is protecting that software properly, how do we know that the software that somebody is selling to some company or they're writing for themselves is not padded with malware? And there you go. They're using AI to create an app to help them do something, yet that AI app's going to come back and bite them. Um,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on how, we're doing software now, like
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
can do software.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, software has been the bane of the security industry for since it's existed, right? So software vulnerabilities, software quality, like vulnerabilities is just a software quality issue that just happens to have a cybersecurity impact, has been an issue all along. Use of open source libraries, use and dependencies in software has been one of the fundamental problems of the cybersecurity industry since the cybersecurity industry started. So AI just adding to the mix just adds to the problem, right? So in terms of it, back to your poisoning, it's quite easy for people, unskilled people now, say writing software, and then organizations using that software. It's entirely possible to obviously bias and alter the models that are used to generate that software. And so, in theory, depending on the models you're using, if they were maliciously or malevolently created, that people could introduce vulnerabilities, exploits, backdoors, etc., into software that's likely to be generated. So that's entirely possible. I think the thing is to say, great, we've got this tool, right? It's out there, it's democratized, it's fantastic, it has the potential for huge good, but just the fast and loose approach to we got to do AI,
Mm.
or actually we don't know what AI we're doing. So the more than organizations misuse or loose use of sanctioned AI use, there's a huge amount of shadow AI, right? There's a shadow AI use. So there's people in HR departments using it to write job specs. There's people using AI to review CVs, to almost interview candidates and score them, etc. Just one use case there. So you've got both the sanctioned and unsanctioned use of AI. So as with all these things, you've got to get control of it. So you've got to try and identify what's going on. You've got to try and set guardrails about organizational use of AI and policies and guidelines, and then you got to try and police the use of that and the unsanctioned use of that. And what is clearly only emerging now is what is the best practices in terms of AI use and security and privacy and all of those factors that come in. So as with any new genie let out of the bottle, you've got to very quickly start to try and manage and regulate and govern and control it. A lot of people, of course, will respond to that and say you're stopping innovation, you're limiting use of the organization, you're killing, agility, all of that sort of
I
stuff. And
know
you're
the
saying,
I know the type.
yeah,
you,
yeah, yeah.
you know, it's quite interesting because the world has a new game, and the we're writing the rules of the game as we play the game. And the really interesting thing about why this is an exciting time to be alive in this world is that for the first time, um, every rule you write in this game it doesn't matter if it's good or bad or indifferent. It's valid because
Yeah,
if a bad actor figures out a way to game the system, to game the game, all right,
yeah,
yeah, then you've got to go there and you've got to figure this out. And it's like a never ending 365 days, 24/7 war between the good guys and the bad guys trying to protect their businesses. And
yeah,
if this was all just fun and games, right, it'll be interesting. But the challenge is, of course, people lose their businesses, they lose their jobs, they lose money, and it gets really, really impactful on the economies and things like that.
yeah.
Well, Pat, what keeps you awake at night? Like, what do you worry about the most of looking at
I,
everything in the world with cybersecurity in particular? What worries you?
my concern is, apart from my role in Echo, I kind of sit on a what's called a Cyber Ireland, which is an industry cluster here in Ireland. So I have the benefit of looking obviously at the immediate problems of Echo and Echo's customers, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the benefit, I suppose, of looking at the wider industry challenge, which is interesting and useful. And you know, the thing that keeps me awake there is that well, it's a combination of the threat and the missed opportunity, right? So there is this notion that there is dramatic underskilling and lack of availability of cybersecurity professionals and resources, right? And the I suppose the established cybersecurity community tends to be generally very homogenous. It's technical, et cetera, typically male, so it is quite a homogenous industry. So there is a huge need for skills and resources and diversity to go and tackle the problem. And like that's at a technical level, but similarly, if you're a journalist, if you're a soldier, if you're a policeman or police person, whatever, we need to bake in basic cybersecurity skills as life skills. You know, it's as important as saving or cooking, right? In terms of just the digital economy that you're working in, where we would have taught people personal safety in the past, you need to teach them now personal safety and cybersecurity, both for their personal role as a citizen, but also for their professional role in an organization, et cetera, as well. And you know, it's to try and do that, right? And that's A, for their protection and for protection of the good guys and you know the well-intentioned organizations. But also it is a very well paid role. It is a very uh, it's an industry that is growing phenomenally fast. We can't resource it fast enough, and we can't skill it fast enough. So my concern is that we provide the skills and diversity and roles and resources to secure the modern digital economy and the digital citizen, but that we allow that whole ecosystem to thrive and people to benefit from it. And you know, in Ireland, as is typically across the rest of the world and the UK, you're having to look for talent in places that you traditionally never had to look for it before. So you're actively engaging in apprenticeship programs. You're actively engaging in ex-security services, ex-police people, ex-military people, etc., who would have a security mindset, and retooling them mid and late career, etc., etc. So you're starting to look in places that you're looking for, you know, neurodiverse people because, you know, this groupthink towards security needs alternative thinking and alternative use. And you're looking outside, you're looking to the legal industry, you're looking to, you know, medical practitioners to say, you know, we don't, cybersecurity professionals, we don't have the domain expertise, because what you find is we have the principles of cybersecurity, but there's very different application of that in medical, in operational technology, in financial services, et cetera, et cetera. So you've got to push those skills to the domain experts as well. So the thing that keeps me awake at night is the resourcing of this and the capturing the opportunity of it. And you know, with Cyber Ireland, we're sort of saying, for example, Ireland, you know, has an opportunity to capture a very significant share of the cybersecurity market. We only typically have 1% of it globally. It is a phenomenally large market in its own right, but you know, if we doubled or tripled that, that's that's a significant opportunity. So that kind of keeps me awake. The other thing that keeps me awake is making sure that our workforce, our existing workforce, is staying sufficiently skilled and sufficiently committed to protecting our customers. Our customers trust us to protect them. That means we have to stay with a very high level of education, knowledge, skills, expertise, motivation for the workforce. And this workforce
And
is
also avoid burnout. I mean,
correct.
it's a real
That's yeah.
thing.
Yeah, that is the issue. I mean, you know, you go into any security operations center, you find analysts that are, and you know, a lot of these guys take it personally. A lot of security analysts, they take it
Absolutely.
personally. They're modern, you know, medical tech. You know, they're critical kind of A&E equivalents of the cybersecurity world. So when they're mid-incident with a customer, it's personal to them, and they tend to overwork to try and protect and help and respond with customers, etc. as well. And that, as you say, results in burnout. So the only way to really solve that is A, to try and manage it, but B, to have progression, to say that, you know, people move from these frontline roles to take their experience and knowledge and move up the
Rotation.
organizational chain,
It's
rotation
almost
and,
like,
and progression.
air traffic controllers. I mean, when I
Correct.
think about cybersecurity folks and SOCs and so on, it's like air traffic controllers. There's rules. Like you can't be doing this for more than X hours. You got to take a break. You got to do this. You got to do. And the reason why is because after a while, everything just looks like gobbledygook,
Yes.
and a human can only handle so much. And I have a feeling, I don't know 100%, but from the people I speak to in these high energy environments, they're challenged because they don't have enough staff,
Yes.
and they feel that they have to keep going and going and going,
Yeah.
and they sacrifice a lot with 80-hour weeks, and not just their lives, their health, families
Yeah.
and everything else. And at the end of the day, truth be told, when they tell you the real truth, they go, sometimes, I miss things because
Yes.
I'm just tired. And I think, the human element is something that we all got to figure out how to, do it. And maybe the university's got to get a bigger role. The government's got to play a bigger role, subsidize the next generation to get into these cyber roles better. Um, Industry needs to be plugged into universities better to make sure that their cyber programs are not just, well, wait a minute, there's a virus,
Yeah.
let's go beyond the basics here to where we are now. And I just got a feeling that because we have AI now, and we could train AI to do crazy things, these things can actually help now improve the
Absolutely.
skills of these people. So there are solutions, and I hope everybody, the smart folks out there like you guys are pushing those things with governments as well, right?
Yeah, well, look, if you, I guess if you listen to some of the AI narrative, right, it's we don't need people anymore. We're just going to use all this tech, et cetera, et cetera. It's just nonsense, right?
It is nonsense.
I mean, what you're trying to do in anything, in any use of AI or any tool is you have to validate. You have to make sure that the tool is performing, and then you got to use it, and then you bring the human dimension to consider something that the AI engine and AI model hasn't considered or interpret appropriately, right? So you need people in this. All you are doing, as you say, is you're trying to make people more productive. You're obviously trying to reduce burnout. You're trying to remove the much more mundane tasks that they do and allow them to do much more because, the problem historically in the cybersecurity world is just overload. Apart from individuals, it's overload of information and trying to interpret what's coming from that information, eliminate the false positives, and then focus on what you need to focus on. And
Predictive.
that is a huge skill set. But if AI can help with that, and then when you say, okay, that is a real incident, now go lock down that device, see where that malware has propagated to, lock down those devices quickly, etc. So you're taking an awful lot of mundane tasks away from the overworked analyst or the overworked risk consultant or incident responder, and you're allowing them to be much more productive. And hopefully reduce some of that burnout. But inevitably, look, if you're still short skilled, great, you're now much more productive, but here's some extra work, right? That's always the problem. So instead of supporting one customer, you can support 10 customers in parallel, right? So it's making
Apparently,
sure.
we got computers to help us do, our work better so we can have time. Yet people are
Yeah,
working twice as
yeah,
much.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
the
yeah.
world is the world. Pat, I'll leave you with the last word here. What do you want the world to know about first of all, what Ekco is doing, but your best advice for people out there?
I think my best advice is that organizations, like I get it, customers always tell me, look, cybersecurity is not our core business. We're in retail or we're in whatever, and I get that, I understand that, but actually, what those organizations now need to understand is if they've undergone digital transformation and are digitally dependent, then cybersecurity is core to your digital operation and your digital function. So you should move to, I suppose, a much more proactive approach to cybersecurity. Some of that has been driven by regulation and legislation that's happening in Europe, in the US, in the UK, etc. But if you're being driven there by compliance and legislation, to me, you have the wrong mindset. You got to look at this and say, actually, if our business is making cars, selling handbags, whatever it is, through a digital channel, selling food and clothing through, highly digital channel with significant digital assets driving all of that, then it's a one-on-one to say that you have to have the digital infrastructure available 24/7, and the data that it processes and the customer data that you hold has to be secured. Otherwise, there is no trust and there is no resilience and there's no business operation. And we're seeing plenty of examples of the impact of both malicious and inadvertent breakage or breach of that digital infrastructure. So I would say to organizations, you got to recognize that, okay, cybersecurity is not core, but if a digital infrastructure is core to your business, then the availability and the security of that digital infrastructure is core to your business, and you've got to invest
Absolutely.
appropriately.
It's very simple. There could be no digital transformation without cybersecurity, and
Correct.
anybody who says different should be living in a world that's flat. I will leave
Yeah,
that. I'll leave it
yeah,
there.
brilliant.
And
Great
the
to talk to you,
website
Julian.
address
Uh,
echoes what?
www.ek.co.
There you go. Pat, it's been a pleasure. It's really great to know that folks like you are out there fighting the battle every day. It's not an easy fight, but it's complicated, but we will win
Uh,
collectively. We
we're
will not stop until we will win.
very good. Look, great to talk to you, Julian, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to you.
Pleasure. Cheers.